Welcome, everybody, to Sally Speaks podcast. And today I am just thrilled to invite Amanda Craven, who is from notjustcoaching.com. And she resides in the UK. And we had a great conversation about a month or so ago. And I was really taken in by the work that she chooses to do and how she really helps childhood trauma healing, and also works with entrepreneurs and leaders and goal setting. And so I know a lot of what the work is that she does is surrounding the entrepreneurs, the founders, the executives that are still deep down, they've got this trauma that's affecting their performance going forward. She's an accredited and licensed clinical hypnotherapist, a life coach, a psychologist, and an author, like I said, based in the UK, but she also has a global client base. And I just love that about our businesses these days, that we can be global and share the messages that we have with so many more people. Previously, she was an entrepreneur for over 24 years. She's had an international marketing job, which entailed many solo business trips to Russia in the 1990s. And she's lived and worked in France also for over 6 years. She's very qualified, and I'll let her talk a little bit specifically about that. But today we're really going to dig into the 5 simple steps to setting and smashing your life goals. And it's what she terms as POWER tool for life goals. And each of those, the words in POWER have a meaning. So why don't we start there, Amanda? And thank you for joining us today.
Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me. This is really exciting, and I'm so glad our paths crossed and we've been able to connect in this way. Yeah, the power of global connections.
It is the power of global connections, and I really like it because what it allows me to do is to really be understanding that we're the same across the globe. That's one thing I'm recognizing, is that even though we have cultural differences, our mindsets are the same, the way that we operate is the same, and we're all typically going through the same type of challenges or struggles in our life. So tell me a little bit about why you chose this field.
Okay, so in terms of choosing clinical hypnotherapy, I first discovered hypnotherapy 13, maybe nearly 14 years ago now, when I was diagnosed with cancer. And it was quite a shock diagnosis. I was 41 or 42 at the time. My youngest daughter was still only 1 year old. It kind of came out of the blue. And I reached out to a clinical hypnotherapist near me to have support to get through all the various hurdles, particularly to get support with having the surgery and the treatments, and balancing all of that with still running my family and being a mum to three young daughters. So that planted the first seed, really, of hypnotherapy. And it obviously took a few years to get through the treatment and to recover my energy levels. And once I did, I fancied a fresh start in all areas. And as I was thinking about what I could do, I knew I still wanted to be my own boss. I still wanted to be an entrepreneur. And when I started looking into training in hypnotherapy, I just thought, yes, actually, that is going to be the perfect way of making sense of all the stuff, all the traumas that I have experienced, including the cancer trauma, and putting that to good use. And when I did the training course, I'm based in the northeast of England. I traveled to Manchester once a month for 3-4 days for about 9 months. And I just knew straight away that that was where I was meant to be. Like I'd come home, that all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle had come together. And since that day, I have just been blown away by the power of hypnotherapy. So that's enabled me to help hundreds of people in the last few years, and has given me inspiration also for the books I wrote, including the Power Tool for Life Goals that you mentioned at the beginning. So just an amazing variety of possibilities within this one domain.
That's amazing. And you're the first person I've heard that had a cancer diagnosis and then went to a hypnotherapist. What made you go to a hypnotherapist as opposed to other different modalities?
To be honest, I'm not really sure. I think because one of the major issues for me was I was terrified of the idea of having a general anaesthetic. Obviously, I was terrified with the idea that I had a tumour growing inside me, and we didn't know at that point how big it was, where it had spread, etc. But yeah, I had a real fear of going into hospital, of having general anaesthetic, and that separation anxiety, I guess, from my young daughters at the time. And it just seemed to make sense to reach out to a hypnotherapist. I had some awareness of the subconscious mind and the power of working with the subconscious, rather than just having conscious level superficial talking therapy.
Yeah, I agree with that piece. I have a lot of insight into that subconscious mind as well, and how
Of course, yeah.
How we can control that. So that's very interesting. So now tell me about your power tool.
Okay, so the Power Tool for Life Goals also evolved over a few years. I got through the cancer diagnosis and created this fresh start, a new chapter in my life, and set up a new business, moved from one end of the country to the other, did some fairly big things within a short space of time. And as I was working with clients, we worked on the healing part in the first sessions together. And then we wanted to set goals, and we wanted to create a fresh new chapter for them. And as I was working with them and thinking back to my own goal setting journey and achievements, I realized that there were some fairly specific steps that I had taken. And so I just sat down and pulled all these things together, my personal experiences of my clients, and created this 5-step tool. So as you said, each of the letters in the word power represent a step in the goal setting process. We start with picture your goal, for the P. Then the O is one step at a time. Just take one step at a time. Even if you've got your whole plan drawn out, you only focus on one at a time and break each step down into the smallest possible pieces. So that's the O for one step. W is to remind you to think about your when. When do you want to have achieved this goal by? When are you going to start? When are you going to do each of those sections? The E is to remind you to evaluate, to measure how it's going, to check in with measurable data, but also check in with your gut feeling. How's this feeling? Am I on the right track? And again, I know that's something that will resonate with you in the work you do. And then finally R, the reason, checking in with the reason. And that's again, checking in with your own feelings, your gut reaction, your heart reaction, and adjusting your course if things aren't feeling in alignment. So they're the 5 steps that I realized had been components in my own goal setting.
Yeah, those are really powerful. I think there's a lot of people that, as they're trying to change within their life, or try to get to that next goal, or want to create something different, it's really hard for them to wrap their mind around a process or a system to be able to get there. So having something like this, where you're actually, they can even think about the word power now once they start working with you, and know which of those steps they're in at any point in time when it comes to decision making, or when it comes to taking action, that they're actually utilizing those tools. So I really love that you created that to make it so simple for people to just be able to bring it back to their mind.
Yeah.
And that's probably part of your hypnotherapy that does that, because you understand the impact of that. But to be able to really allow and empower the people that you're coaching to have a simple system that allows them to follow that as you're working with them, and even after you finished working with them. So now,
Yes.
as you've been talking a little bit about your family and the things you do with your family. So in between your businesses, because you've had a number of different things that you've done for business, what is it that you do with your family now? Like, because your daughters are obviously a little bit older, but how do you work that into your busy entrepreneurial life? Because there's a lot of people out there, men and women, that are trying to figure out, how do I have that work-life balance as well? And I believe that you have systems or processes around that you could share with others, because it's a big challenge for people.
It is, yes, yeah. I don't know if I have specific systems for that. Again, I'm quite an intuitive person, so I do tend to feel my way through. But I think that's a really important guide for us. There's no one set formula that any entrepreneur should or could follow, and that word "should" puts a lot of pressure on us, because there are people who have this image of what being an entrepreneur, maybe working from home and juggling work-life responsibilities, should look like. But it's different for everybody, and I think we should that word we need to give ourselves some space, cut ourselves some slack, and allow ourselves as individuals to find our own rhythm, to find our own beat, and to look for an overall balance, not trying to get a balance every single day, for example. Just look at maybe the whole week or even the whole month, because for some of us, there are more intense days or there are more intense weeks. So if we just see it as part of a bigger pattern, and make sure that we have time for things that bring us joy. I get so much joy from my work. I'm very blessed to be doing something that I'm so passionate about. But I also know that I need to look elsewhere and switch off, go for a walk down to the sea to clear my head, go out for coffee or for a meal with my girls. And sometimes just chill and watch a movie or watch a series on TV with one of them. They have quite different interests, so in terms of watching something together, it tends to be one-on-one for that, because they won't all sit down and enjoy the same thing. But yeah, I have made a decision quite recently. It was about a year ago. I decided to carve out some me time in order to replenish my energy stocks, and to give myself some time for doing something just for me, outside of work, outside of family, dogs, daughters, and all the other responsibilities. So I've taken myself to a gym. I go there 4 times a week, and those classes are booked into my diary before I do any other appointments, barring any hospital emergencies or doctor appointments for my children, obviously. And that is first and foremost in the diary. And other things work around that. So on the days when I do those gym classes, that's 3 weekdays and a Saturday. In terms of the weekdays, that means that I just start my working day later. So I might be at my desk for 11 a.m, but I'm quite happy to work through until 7, 8 a.m, p.m. rather, or a bit later in the evening, especially now working with people in different time zones. You have to be a bit flexible. So I get a balance from feeling my way, making sure there is some definite carved out me time, which is easier when your children are older. I know for entrepreneurs who have younger families, that can be more difficult. So it might be smaller chunks of time, and they might not have the luxury of 4 times a week doing something just for them, but that's something they can work towards. So yeah, finding your own way and giving yourself permission to do it in a way that works for you.
Yeah, I like that word permission, because oftentimes we have the mindset of that, we, like you said, I should be doing this, I have to be doing this, as opposed to I get to choose what I want to do, and giving yourself permission to say, I'm important, my health is important, and I need to
Absolutely.
get that physical exercise, or I just need to be out in the fresh air because that regenerates me. And one thing I know that I teach as well is really about being able to, I'll say go with the flow, but just really feel your energy. And as you're getting to that push or that pull, to be able to take yourself aside and just say, okay, I just need 5 minutes, or maybe I'll just walk outside for a minute and check out my garden, or like go down to the water and just regenerate, because it's such a powerful practice. And especially as entrepreneurs, to give ourselves that permission to be able to do that, because I find most entrepreneurs really don't even take breaks most of the time. They just plug away. And especially because we're global and we're on different time zones. For you, it's later in the day. For me, it's first thing in the morning, right? And so it's understanding we have to make a few sacrifices here and there, but we can also make it up by doing other elements to keep our mindset fresh and to keep our body healthy. And I think that's a really important tip for any entrepreneur, because it's so easy to get dragged into the constant always working, because we're trying to generate that income, we're trying to get successful, we're trying to build our team, etc. So it can be wearing all the hats to be a little stressful. So now, having said that, in entrepreneurs, are you identifying that there's a lot of childhood wounds that are showing up, and for entrepreneurs as a business? So tell me about that.
Yes. And it's quite a tricky one, really, because I've sort of realized that recently I have niched down into serving entrepreneurs, founders, leaders, CEOs with childhood trauma symptoms, let's say, in inverted commas. But it can be difficult to know for the people themselves sometimes that they are childhood trauma symptoms, because people who've been through a tough time in childhood often found that their experiences were played down or normalized by people around them for a variety of reasons. And when that's all we know, we don't question it. We just assume that that's how childhood is, that's how family life is. And so we find coping mechanisms, but later on in life, in adulthood, they can become maladaptive coping mechanisms, maladaptive behaviors. And what that might look like in adulthood, in the entrepreneurs I've worked with, is self-sabotage, addictions, workaholism, anxiety or panic attacks, procrastination, all these things and more. There's a huge long list of potential ways that childhood adversity, childhood trauma, emotional trauma can show up. And these symptoms, these behaviors have a real detrimental impact on the work of the entrepreneur, CEO, and on their personal life. It greatly affects their ability, in many cases, to form long-lasting, healthy, balanced relationships. And whether they are sort of personal romantic relationships and subsequent families that go with that, or whether they're friends, or whether they're relationships with other people in their business world, being able to trust, to communicate effectively, to get on. These may be traits and behaviors that a person who experienced trauma and tough times early in life didn't necessarily learn how to do. They didn't have adequate role models.
Yeah. So how, as an entrepreneur, so I noticed you used a few different, scenarios in there, like anxiety or procrastination and things like that. So how would I, as an entrepreneur, know that I really need support in that? Because it's a habit that I've created, and an emotional response I've created to a behavior that pops up, or a circumstance that pops up. So how am I going to be able to identify that I really do need to call Amanda and say, hey, I think I need to talk to you because I'm experiencing this over and over. What point do people really identify that, or how can they be aware of that more so that they can reach out to someone like yourself?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's it's an ongoing issue that I have, because I know that even before I'd connected all the dots and realized that the majority, over 80% of my clients over the last 8 years have had childhood trauma experiences. They didn't come to me for childhood trauma. So part of what I do now is educate people to recognize the potential symptoms. So I do this through my YouTube channel. I do this through my other social media platforms on LinkedIn. I have guides and quizzes that people can take so that they can work out, because you do get people, not only, but especially men, who say, yeah, it was tough, but that was all right. It didn't do me any harm. But they come to realize that they have got habits, behaviors, traits that are really tripping them up, that are really either holding them back, keeping them smaller than they want to be, or they're reaching for that next level and it's not sustainable because they haven't got that solid foundation in those healthy behaviors in place. So self-sabotage, tripping themselves up, comes into that quite a lot. So it is about being aware, I guess, noticing that there are certain patterns of behavior. If you're struggling in business, if you're finding that all the people that you connect with, your business partners or contractors or whoever it might be, if you become aware that all these relationships are problematic, then perhaps that's something that you need to work on, rather than thinking that everybody else has got it wrong. And yeah, just being self-aware. We know deep down if we are self-medicating, whether that's with alcohol, with prescription medication, or with other things, that it does normally take quite a bit of time and perhaps a triggering event, some contract just blowing up and not happening, or a new business project just falling apart, or a marriage falling apart. There quite often is a significant trigger for people to then say, right, I need to do something about this. And then they might start to make a connection with what happened in the past. Some people have an inkling, but they've stuffed it down into that good old subconscious, and the deep part of their subconscious, where they stuffed things that they weren't able to deal with at the time. But that is seeping up, and it's affecting behaviors and things that are happening consciously in their life. So it's a question of raising awareness. That's part of my job, my mission, and encouraging people to be self-aware, and encouraging them to look back at what happened to them, and to give themselves permission to question whether that was okay, whether they were treated in the right way, or whether there was something going on there that they didn't deserve to have to deal with it at that age.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about the money paradigm? The money blocks from childhood, because, from what I understand, most of those blocks start, when we're quite young, and we just carry them for our life. And then we get into a relationship, either a business relationship or a marriage relationship, and the person comes in with their own money paradigms or their more perspectives. And do you do coaching in that way as well? Because I think that's a big piece of the puzzle for most people that are living today, is either the struggle or the abundance. And I think that, everybody, like in any relationship, the two people, I was in finance for quite a long time, and there was
Yes.
never, the people were never aligned on the money perspective.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if that comes up in your business as well.
It does, yes. It's part of the puzzle, and part of the story for many people that I work with. So that comes from, as I know you know from your own work on that, from maybe an experience of poverty when they were growing up, not having role models who managed money well, that feeling that there was always scarcity, seeing one or both parents or other significant adults in their lives working harder and harder, more and more hours, and believing that in order to have enough to live on, you just have to keep going. And yeah, so having unhealthy or imbalanced role models is a big part of that. Also, you can get people who had a very they had a neglected childhood, or they experienced poverty and lack, who almost make a promise to themselves that they are never going to be in that situation, and they might push themselves to the other extreme to compensate and to show. But again, if that isn't built on a real sense of self-worth, then that isn't going to be sustainable either, and you will get people who will skyrocket and then crash and burn, and then pick up the pieces and start again. So you get, until those core wounds have been healed, you will get these sort of roller coaster rides of behaviors, experiences, and success coming and going, if you don't go back and heal those core wounds.
Yeah, and I think, what you brought up there with, you'll continue to have that same reaction and that same result. And there's so many stories of people that have gone into being an entrepreneur. They've come from a certain lifestyle, or being raised a certain way, but then they've started this business and it failed. Then they start the next one, it fails. Then they start the next one, it fails. And then finally they have success. So it must be that development that is happening, or the finally recognizing the patterns that they have. And then they say, oh, yeah, it took me this long to get to the success, but now I'm this. And we see stories all the time on the internet. It's everywhere, right? And it's, and there's lots of get rich quick schemes as well, which people are running toward because of their money behaviors or paradigms that have been preset. So I think it's very interesting today, because everything is so visual for us and available for us. Whatever we're looking to sort of put a patch on, we can find a way to put that patch on. But at the end of the day, it's that deep work that we get to do to really take control of that, and to make that permanent shift, to really make a change going forward, so that we don't have to flip back again and again and again. And I see a lot of people in my business as well that are struggling with that same concept in all different areas, just like you do. And yours is taking them even deeper, I believe, because it goes straight into actually digging down to find out the root cause and then driving forward. So I really appreciate that about the work that you get to do, and the time that you spent training yourself on that, because you're very well degreed and you've written in different journals within your industry. And so I know that the validation for who you are is available to anybody. And I really appreciate you being very frank with us today, because I think there's so many people that, I know there's so many people that have such great intentions. And they have beautiful ideas on what they want to do to serve others, to create a better life for them, but yet they become stuck in what they're doing themselves. So this is an option for them to be able to listen to you today and really hear what you're saying, to know that there is support, there is an opportunity, there is a way. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It's not hard. It just takes your committed decision to make that change for yourself, to change the dynamic of your life going forward. So I
Yes,
really
yeah.
appreciated our time today. So tell me, how can, you mentioned a few things, like you had some tips, you have, you know, your own YouTube channel and some different things like that. So how would people find that, and where's the best place for them to go?
Right. Well, I guess the best port of call would be my my main website, and that's notjustcoaching.com. And from that website, there are updates on all the monthly free webinars for entrepreneurs and leaders that I do. I've got a couple coming up over the next couple of months on self-confidence and people pleasing. In September, we'll be looking at narcissists in the workplace, which is, as we were saying on our previous conversation, that's a very hot topic at the moment. So all of the things that fit into the traits and unwanted behaviours experienced by people who have childhood trauma, I cover over the years in a once a month free webinar, which enables people to start addressing what is going on for them. It also enables them to get to know me, how I work, what I do, my style, etc. So all those details, plus how to download a free guide, the quiz and guide, to see if you experienced childhood trauma, and if you now have CPTSD, as it's called, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is what we use to refer to trauma over an extended period, such as in childhood. So yeah, notjustcoaching.com is the one-stop shop, I guess.
Well, it's nice to have that, so that everything's there for people to find. And I know they can find you on LinkedIn as well.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You just go by your name on there, or do you go by your company name?
Yes, well, both actually. So Amanda Craven, or Not Just Coaching.
Perfect. So it's great that you have all these connections, and I love the fact that you're doing a monthly seminar for people to just get educated and to be curious, right? Curiosity is really good. It's probably one of the best things that I could say right now is, if you have curiosity and you're looking for some, you know, some insights, go check out her past episodes. Make sure that you're staying in touch with her to see what she's putting up every month, because Amanda has so much knowledge and so much experience in helping people go through the same types of things that you are going through today. And to me, our life is so short. We need to make sure that we're living it the best way and not continuing to do the same behaviors over and over that aren't getting us the results that we want. And so I really, really appreciate your time today, Amanda. It's just been a pleasure to get to know you better, but also to really hear about the impact that you're making for your clients, and how simple you're making certain elements of being able to work with you so that you can actually make that change yourself. So I really appreciate you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure.